Welcome to Life by Design, episode 301. Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Cratio Jug. There's your pause, Cratio. I was waiting for you.
Sorry, buddy. I lost you there for a second.
Oh, well, now I'm back.
Yeah, it was a long pause. I was like, "Whoa, this is longer than it should be." But hey, here we are. Let's do this.
I know that you have a hard time being without me, so that's probably more what it was.
This actually isn't. That's not. I know you're poking fun, but there's a lot of truth to that.
Sure, I know. I was tugging at your heartstrings. I know how to get to you.
Yeah, by pausing.
Yes. We are creators of Life by Design with 25 certified locations worldwide. Each week on the show, we discuss the principles and the practice of Life by Design. Today's episode, we are talking about peanut allergies, but not so much just because they're peanut allergies and there was a study, but I like the topic of today, which is more about adaptability. So I have a bunch of thoughts and questions that I'm going to spew out, Gracia. I know this is going to spark an interesting conversation. Obviously, what we're looking at in this study, and we'll put it in the show notes, guys, at lifebydesign.com/podcast. Find today's episode, and you can see it in the show notes. It's a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and we're looking at kids and exposing them to peanut, essentially. So giving them, a small exposure over and over and over again, and seeing if they would adapt. So basically, we're giving them a peanut protein every day for 6 months, and then a maintenance dose for another 6 months to see if they're able to consume peanut protein with no ill effect. And basically what the study is looking at is how the body adapts. And, we can talk about the peanut part of it for a bit, Cratio, but really what we're talking about and the whole point is what they're really studying is the adaptability of the body and why people should care about this. So what are your thoughts and comments, Cratio, whether it be about the peanuts or just about adaptability in general? And then we'll sprout off from where that takes us.
Sure. I mean, I like the study, or I like the experiment in the sense that it's aimed to solve a very practical problem. And, and they've noticed that, and they have data that peanut allergies are in fact increasing. And the goal was not to, not to cure somebody of peanut allergies, but to have them, because I mean, these things, the way that they're producing food now, peanuts are very cheap to produce. They're very genetically modified, which means that they can produce them almost anywhere, which means that there's a lot of peanut products in a lot of food. So the goal was to help these kids consume something by accident and not go into a certain type of anaphylactic shock.
Right.
And then it just got me thinking, because essentially what they're doing is they're exposing them, like you said, to little doses over time. And I'm like, man, that's exactly the health effect that we get by everything that we try to do, like with health, with training and with creating, a healthy mindset and with chiropractic in our practices. Like it's all the same principle. And I would actually say, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, I would think that adaptability is kind of the central theme to health.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's the point. And there's, you've maybe on this show even seen, and you'll see it in the literature if you look, but, this idea of salutogenesis, right? This idea of health creation as a whole topic, a whole field now, which I think is wonderful. And we're paying more attention to that. Now, I think it's interesting here when you think about adaptability and, in your show notes, you've used the example of applying a stimulus or a stress in the gym and seeing your body adapt to that, whether it be by getting stronger, whether it be by hypertrophying the muscles, whether it be, the reduction of body fat stores through, changing different environmental things. And, we're all trying to get this outcome that we want. And this applies to all types of things, mental exposure, getting tough, as you say. But my thought process is this, I guess this is the question. We've had this topic before where, if something is, let's say, defined as a poison, so you probably know where I'm going with this, but something's defined as a poison, meaning that it's bad for you, or whatever the definition, I guess maybe we should talk about. But I guess that's my point, is the definition of a poison no longer based on an individual substance, but our adaptability to that substance or, that stimulus? Can something be a poison and not be a poison based solely on somebody's individual adaptability to it?
Oh, well, I mean, we need to keep the proper context to answer your question. We live in the real world, and it's very little when something is as black and white as. I mean, there's lots of examples of black and white. This is a poison. This is good for you. And then there's the interesting and fun to talk about gray areas, like something like a peanut allergy. And then there's the idea that some things in certain quantities can be beneficial, like water. However, if you overdo it, it can be definitely toxic to the human body.
Right.
So we can never drop context when we're talking about truth. This is the idea. You need to always define in which certain circumstances you mean. So yeah, I mean, it's very normal. Sorry, and it seems like it's a roundabout answer, but it is the answer, is that
Right.
certain things in certain contexts can be poisonous to the individual at that time, and then in different contexts can be very beneficial. And that's just the way that it is. And that's what makes health so challenging, right? Like we go to the idea, and we just did a podcast about the autoimmune diet, right? And we
Right.
were talking about how certain people can't eat beef because over time their body has developed a resistance to it. I would never suggest as somebody, my professional advice to somebody who can't eat beef would never be, yo, you need to put beef into your body because I know adamantly 100% dogmatically that it's good for you. If you
Right.
can't digest it, we need to figure out why you can't digest it, because I haven't dropped the context.
Right. Well, and it's great that you went down that path, because really what you're doing is supporting the concept, which is
Exactly.
adaptability is at the
Exactly.
centerpiece of health. And, it opens up this huge, really, I think, positive can of worms in that, people think about health in terms of, do I have a symptom? Do I not? So there's your first really major issue with
No
how
context,
people
right?
define it, right? It's like, okay, I have a headache, so I'm unhealthy. Now I don't have a headache 5 minutes later, so now I'm healthy. I didn't have a heart attack yesterday, I'm healthy. Now I had a heart attack today, now I'm not healthy. I didn't have cancer detectable yesterday because I didn't have any tests. And then I went and had a test, and now I have cancer, and somehow I got unhealthy from
Exactly.
yesterday to today. That's how people
Exactly.
think about health. If we changed our mindset to something that was more built around the concept of salutogenesis, the creation of health, then we start to think more about the concept of adaptability, which is what I'm doing giving my body an opportunity to adapt and get stronger? And that's great if it is. Am I meeting the needs and requirements of my body so it can do that? So it's not just is it doing it, but it's how does my body do that? Well, it does it by having its needs met and being healthier. So you use the immune system as an example, and that's
Hmm.
great. So exposing the body to whether it be virus or bacteria, as long as it doesn't exceed the body's ability to adapt by much. So as long as the virus or bacterium is not virulent enough that the body can't adapt to it, combined with the body's current health level or function, you're probably going to have an immune response. You're going to overcome that, and your body's going to get stronger. That means that in order to do that, you need to do the things that make your body work better. So, as an example, if you're exercising regularly, training, eating by design, as we would suggest, if you're getting rest, managing stress, have a healthy neurological system, good structure, and a good recovery protocol, and then you introduce a virus or bacteria into the body that has, say, a certain level of virulence, you're going to get stronger and you'll adapt. Let's say in the same situation, you take the same virus or bacteria and it's got the same level of virulence, and you introduce it into a body that is deficient, meaning you're not moving, you're not training, you have a problem with sleep, you're not managing stress, you're not eating by design, and you've got a major neural structural issue. Introducing the same virus and bacterium in person number one would allow adaptability, because the body's got what it needs, it's functioning well, and this doesn't exceed its ability to do that, and it's going to get stronger. But the same darn virus and bacteria at the same level of virulence in person number two is actually going to get weaker and potentially could affect them in a way that could actually kill them, in this particular situation. And we see that. You take, for example, Crucio, the flu and influenza virus,
Hmm.
put it into a body that is unhealthy, and in some cases the body can't mount an immune response and it dies, and that does happen. And the same thing in return, if you put it into a person's body who is on the healthier side, it's functioning better and doing more of the right stuff, and it adapts, we know that that person's body gets healthier. So what's the central theme here? It's adaptability is the core to health, but in order to achieve optimal adaptability, you have to meet all the needs and requirements of the body, which is the blueprint that we've essentially laid out for our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, and
That was a
and these
mouthful, by the way.
that was a good mouthful. And these, I mean, these examples are historical, right? And
Mhm.
when we look at plagues or diseases, we look at the influenza epidemic, or we look at polio, or we look at whatever ravaged through humanity. The virus obviously wasn't strong enough to kill everybody, because it would have killed everybody if it was.
Right.
But it affected certain people differently. Some people died. Some people had little to no symptoms, and some people struggled and were permanently damaged after. Right. So one of the factors, not to say that the virus didn't have a major role to play in this. Of course it was, because if there was no virus, we wouldn't have had anything.
Mhm.
However, of interest was the way that the different people handled the virus, and all we're suggesting is one of the major players on the other end of this is your body's ability to naturally defend itself and handle the stress.
Yeah, and it kind of leads us to the take home of this and the strategies around this today, which is, involve yourself in a healthcare blueprint, one that is, and of course, we're obviously, pumping up the tires here for the Life by Design blueprint. That's the whole reason you're listening to the podcast, I hope. But again, we've gone over this many times, Gracio. If we felt like some of the aspects of Life by Design were incorrect, we're not just going to dogmatically stick to them. We're going to change them. And so if I felt like something was wrong, I would find out what's right and do it, which is this is a whole other podcast, an interesting topic, how people won't do that with their life. If something doesn't work, or you realize what you're doing is incorrect, I don't care how much of your life you base around it or your name you put behind it. You need to be able to change that and get in alignment with what is real and what is true. As we've mentioned in Think by Design, reality exists. So you might as well do that. So what's the blueprint here? It's to follow the
Well, I
Life
mean,
by Design
well, hold
blueprint. Go
hold
ahead.
on for 1 second. Yeah, because I think you're onto something, and this isn't the easy road. Like, what we're advocating here, let's be clear on something. Like, it's not easy to go to the gym and up the weight or up the reps or up
Mhm.
the conditioning to a place where it's uncomfortable to create an actual training effect. It is not pleasant to, sometimes when you have a sore throat, like, and I'm not advocating the strategy professionally, but my personal strategy is I would rather sit through a sore throat, or go through the flu, so my body can get stronger while I go through it. It's not fun, it's not awesome, but for me, it's helping me build a
Right.
better
It,
a
uh,
better
it,
body.
it leads to the outcomes that you are interested in that matches your values. And this is
Right.
why even just the consideration of these topics is a great start for people. So if you're listening in and this is the first time you're hearing any of this stuff, it's great. At least you're thinking about it and we're getting you thinking. If you're further down the path, you've been listening to Life by Design over and over and over again, maybe you're part of a Life by Design center somewhere, a Life by Design office somewhere, and you're actually using the blueprint, you're following the Life by Design steps, then great. And again, I'm actually looking. That is a common. I actually had this conversation a bunch this week. I'm looking in my life for opportunities to challenge myself, whether it be physically or mentally or otherwise, because those are the opportunities that make my life better. They strengthen my life. And I think that we're so often in this mindset of restricting everything to keep ourselves safe and to not really have any challenges. And that's kind of the definition of, life, is make it as easy as possible. I'm not suggesting I don't like to lay around and watch TV and hang out in bed and watch a movie. But what I am saying is that the rewards of those things come from finding ways to make my life harder and more difficult in order to adapt and get stronger. And I think that people would be they would be well served by doing this more often in their life and really leveraging this principle of adaptability.
Yeah, but some of these things, and here's the unfortunate part, sometimes this is the only solution. Some of these things I remember, or there's, look at some of the ads. We need to end cyberbullying, or we need to end bullying. I'm all for, ending bullying. I think it's terrible. I think it's horrible what kids go through. I think 2018 is the hardest year ever as a child to go through any of this stuff. However, bullying is as old as time. No matter where you are or who you are in life, somebody is going to find you. And for whatever reason, maybe it's they don't like your face, maybe it's they're jealous of you, they are going to try to shame you and do something bad to you. And I get that we have all these campaigns and it's an important topic. However, it's much easier to just become stronger and work on that.
Yeah. Well, again, the development of resiliency, and we're not advocating obviously the negative
No.
aspect of this. We're just saying in the presence of that negativity, the more resilient you are, the less that's going to affect you. And
Yeah, so
so,
just so we're clear, I'm not saying I'm against any of the stuff to end any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're all doing our best to try to live our best life. And I'm glad that we have the tools available today, because we didn't always have them.
Mm.
But it's just beneficial all the time to try to create as strong of a mind, as strong of an immune system as you possibly can. It's just going to serve you better long term. That's all that we're saying.
Great show. I can't go past there without having a little chuckle on my head, because when you said that, it reminded me a lot of Step Brothers and Rob Riggle when he said, "I don't like his face."
What do you think I was thinking of?
I guess that's what you were thinking of. So, guys, a great topic, and this is one that probably deserves a longer, or at least a more repeated look at the information. And we'll go ahead and bring this up on future topics and find more research and have these conversations. But in the meantime, implement the blueprint. If you have questions, as always, send us messages, post them on the Facebook page, check us out everywhere. And thank you so much for listening and joining the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.